Can everybody see that? Okay, very cool. Also feel free to you don't have to, but feel free to leave yourself unmuted if you want. I like these to be pretty collaborative and so feel free to interject questions and all those good things. I also have not done one of these in a while, so I have no idea how long this is about to take, but it might take 10 minutes, might take the whole hour. I have no idea, but we're gonna go for it. Okay, so here we are, content strategy. Yay. This is a topic that I am a geek about, so get ready. Okay. So first we got to start off with like the very basics, right? We hear a lot of people talking about content pillars and purpose and type and all these things. So I just want to get everybody on the same page, make sure we're all clarified in what these things actually are. So your pillars are the actual topics that you're talking about regularly, right? Hold on. Where's my mouse? Okay, I just saw that a chat came in, but my Zoom is not sharing the chat.
Oh, I was going to tell you from where I am, it just shows me a loading screen for your Google Slides. So I'm not sure if there's a different window or something like that.
Okay, interesting. Can everybody else see, or is it loading?
I'm just getting a loading screen, but I just assumed it was my crappy internet.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
I was like, wait, I wasn't sure, but yeah, mine's loading too.
No, I see that. It's coming up on it's probably my crappy internet, if I'm gonna be honest. Here, let me see if we can stop. I have the worst. I live in the middle of nowhere, so I have the worst internet known to mankind. Okay, can we see this?
Yes.
Okay, amazing. Hopefully we won't have to do this in between each slide because that's gonna get annoying, but we'll make do. Okay, so anyway, pillars are the things that we actually talk about on like a day-to-day basis, right? So for me as a business foundations coach, I talk about like branding a lot, content strategy, lead generation, niche and target audience, right? Like those are the things that I actually spend time talking about. So those are my pillars and they connect to my offer, right? Because in my actual coaching, that's what I talk to people about. It's what I teach them. So it's all connected. And then the purpose behind your content is like, why are you even posting it in the first place? You know, are you trying to make some sales off of this? Are you trying to grow your audience? Are you trying to build those relationships with people? What is the actual goal behind the piece of content? And this is the spot for me that I was 100% lacking when I first started my business and when I was like about to give up because I was like, this is just not cutting it, right? I just didn't have any purpose behind what I was posting. It was like, I did, but my only purpose was to grow my audience. And even that really wasn't working because I wasn't doing that properly either. You know how it goes. So having an actual purpose and like really being intentional about it too. So like now I sort of lay it out, like I'm going to post this and what is my goal behind it? Because I found that if you assign a goal to it, let's say you assign, this is to build relationships with my existing audience. It might end up growing your audience. It might end up getting you a sale, but it at least served like one of your purposes. But if you just kind of like throw things out there, it's probably not going to do anything for you, right? And then we have content type, which is, reels, stories, carousels, lives, all those, like the actual format of your content and how you're delivering the message. And generally, this is not always true, but generally, different types of content leads to better goals. I think I said that right. So, it's like reels tend to grow your audience a little bit more effectively. At least for me, carousels tend to sell a little bit more than reels, right? So it's just like those general things that are trends. Obviously not true for everyone. I know plenty of accounts that only post carousels and grow like crazy off of them, right? I know plenty of accounts that only post reels and are selling like crazy and they don't have a problem. So, just general rules. Okay, can we still see this? Okay, cool. So now let's talk about the funnel on Instagram, and because ultimately we're posting content so we can make sales. We're not posting it just for our health. So this was another thing that I had some general conception of what the funnel was, but nobody ever laid it out for me very clearly. So we start up here at the top with your content, right? You're posting things to get people in your door. the next place we want them to go is to our stories. You notice the people that watch your stories are the people that are actually really invested in you and your business. If they don't watch your stories, they probably don't really care that much about what you're talking about, which is fine. Like not everybody has to care that much, but the people who actually care about what you're saying are probably going to be watching your stories because they want to know who you are. They want to get to know you more. They want to see like, what can you actually offer outside of a piece of content? And then we want to use stories to direct people into our DMs, because that's where like really all the magic happens. And I always tell my clients, if we could, in the perfect world, if we could get people straight into the DMs, that would be ideal, right? If we could skip everything else and just get people right into the DMs, like that's the most ideal situation, because then you can skip all of these different steps and the DMs is really where the kind of the magic happens, right? And I also heard this a few months ago, and I don't know if this is like 100% true, so don't take my word for it, but I heard that DMs are one of the most powerful like forms of engagement in terms of the algorithm. So if you talk to somebody, have a conversation in the DMs, they're like way more likely to see your content in the future than if you just like interacted with them, you know, in the comments. So in terms of engagement, DMs are like super powerful. So it's really important to be having as many conversations as possible in the DMs for engagement. Also, the more conversations you have, the more sales you're going to have. You know, it's just a numbers game. Like if you talk to one person or if you talk to 100, you're probably more likely to get a sale or two from, you know, the 100 conversations versus just the one. And then we want to sort of use the DMs to vet people and say, are they good? Are they a good fit for us? Do we want to work with them? Do they have problems that we could even solve in the first place? And if the answers to all those things are yes, then we want to ask them, hey, would you want to get on a call and chat about this? You know, see if working together would be a good fit. Obviously, be transparent, like don't be dodgy. And all of a sudden they're getting sold to and they didn't know they were getting into it. But like introduce that idea in the DMs. Most people are going to say yes. Like they're at least willing to explore that option. I've had maybe only a handful of people say, actually, no, like I'm not really interested in that. And it's like, okay, no worries. Like totally get it. But most people are going to be really open to it. And they're going to say, absolutely, let's get on a call. And then, you know, you can see if they're a good fit from there. Right. And then, you know, fingers crossed, we make a sale. So, I love the idea of a funnel, right? And like, we're all business women. We all business people. We all know this. Like the funnel, the idea of the funnel is that you only have to get a few people to the bottom of the funnel, but it makes it so much less intimidating than if you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, like I need to have 10,000 followers because I need to have all these people in the door. So no. You know, one of my clients, she just started her business. Like she came to me with nothing, right? She's like, I've tried to start it several times and I just, you know, never had the motivation. And I really want to get the motivation and get a good foundation going. I'm like, perfect. That's what I do. And she was really worried at first, like, I'm not going to make money because I don't have social media following. I have nothing, like I'm starting from scratch and how am I going to pay my bills? And she started getting consistent, like people reaching out to her, asking about her services at about, I think it was like 112 followers. And I just love it because it's such like proof that you don't need a crap ton of people following you to actually make sales and make an impact. And, you know, I was talking to another girl, she had, I think like 5,000 followers or something. And she's like, yeah, I need like 1 or 2 people more a month to like, you know, be able to make this worth it. And so I really need to figure out how to grow my audience. And I'm like, I would beg to differ that you need to know how to nurture your audience, because I guarantee there's 1 or 2 people in 5,000 that want to buy from you. You just haven't done the proper things yet. So that's what I love so much about the funnels. It makes it way less intimidating, right? Like you just need a few people at the bottom. But anyway, a little soapbox moment. But okay, so this is one of the strategies for actually building content that I teach my clients. I call it the PASS method because I like acronyms and they're easy. But basically, you're gonna start with your problem, so your hook, right? And then you're either going to agitate the problem or you're going to build authority around the problem. Then you're going to solve it, and then you're going to have a call to action, because you always have a call to action, no matter what you're doing. So today, my goal is to focus on the problem part of this strategy the most. And then if we have some time, we'll go into agitate and authority, but I don't want to like overload this and then be speeding through. So, so yeah, this is kind of the structure. And like I said, we're going to go into the problem. So obviously we all know you got to make a good hook, right? But I've been hearing a lot lately and I've been starting to implement it when I remember to. It's one of those things, it takes a while to build into habits of this like problem aware hooks. So, and I laid out some, general hooks that seem to work really well for me. But so when we're thinking about our hooks, like we always think, okay, pain points, transformation they're looking for, we're hitting them on different spots in our journey, right? But I think a lot of times as the business owner, because we know all the terms, we know all of the, like fancy stuff, let's say, about it, we forget that most of our clients don't actually know those things. And so we don't end up speaking their language, which is where this problem aware kind of idea comes in. So as I said here, most people are not aware of the terminology, they're aware of their problem, right? They have a problem, they don't know necessarily what it's called, they don't know necessarily like how to fix it, they just know they have a problem. So in an essence, like they're aware of the symptoms, but they don't know the disease, right? Like they know they have problems, but they don't know what it's called. They don't know the technical Latin terms for it or anything. They just know what problem they have. So an example of this would be, well, actually, we'll just a little interactive, right? Like, which of these do you think is the problem aware hook? And feel free to unmute and shout it out.
I would say definitely the second one. I also discovered that many people who need a funnel don't know what a funnel is.
Yeah, absolutely. So true, Chuck. So yeah, I find myself doing this a lot too, and I'm like working really hard to get rid of it because it's like, oh, how do you create a funnel? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like people are just gonna eat this up, like they're gonna be so excited about this, like because I'm sitting there like I had no idea how to create a funnel, so this is gonna be so good, and then I post it and it's like, I'm like, why is this? Why is this? And then I remember, oh, they have no idea what a funnel is, or maybe they have some, conception of what a funnel is, but they're like, it doesn't relate to me. Versus if you say, this is how you convert your followers into clients, which is what a funnel does. But if you say that, they're like, yeah, oh, I need to learn this because I have followers, I'm getting new followers, but nobody is paying me and nobody wants to pay me. So I need to figure out how to do this. And all of a sudden they're eating it up. But because with the first option, it was just sort of like generic, it wasn't their language. Because how many people do you know, just the average person, like walking around is like, oh, my funnel, this, and my business funnel, like nobody talks like that. Like, and if they do, interesting. I don't even talk like that. And I know what it is. So we have to be constantly thinking. And I think it can be hard a lot of times. Like this is a really clear example, I think, but sometimes it's hard. You're like, what is actually their problem versus what I think their problem is, or like what language are they going to be using? And that's where the experimentation part kind of comes in. But we have some more examples. So, okay, what do we think on this one? I know I'm really, really testing you right now.
I think the first one, because the second one again uses those like specific terminology that everyone's not going to know off the bat, but everyone like has their own idea of what marketing is. So
I was gonna say the second one.
Okay, why the second one, Chelsea?
Well, I just feel like because marketing is such a broad topic, I feel like content that resonates with your target audience is a little bit more specific. But also you're right in saying that target audience could be one of those words that people don't understand. So I feel like this one could almost go either way.
Do you have any opinions, Chuck?
I would agree that the first one speaks more in the language of the customer because sometimes brevity is your friend. Like I feel more hooked by improve my marketing than create content that resonates with your target audience. I often tell myself to write in like third grade language because people come from all kinds of backgrounds, and some people English is their second language. They still want to work with me. So simpler is better. So I think number one is the hook one.
Yeah, I kind of purposely created this one where it's like kind of could go either way depending on how you think, right? And you guys have like pointed out really good points, because like improve your marketing, most people can understand generally what that means, but resonating with your target audience is much more specific. And I think we're right, like the idea of writing it in like elementary terms, if we're thinking like that, number one is definitely the way to go. Like some people wouldn't even know what resonate means. Some people have no idea, they've never heard target audience, because there's like so many different ways to describe target audience, ideal clients, target audience, buyer persona, target market, all those things, like different phrases for the same idea. I feel like, is there a way that we can come up with right here, right now, that could combine the two of these, but make it simple to understand, but much more specific and targeted to their actual problem?
Could say 3 steps to reach your target market, or 3 steps to reach your target, or 3 steps to reach your customers with your marketing, maybe.
I like that. I like reach. That's what I had in mind. I also like the use of customers, like people understand customers.
Or maybe like reach your customers in 3 steps. Like that changes the form of it a little bit, but
Same idea though. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Very simple, like to the point. Chelsea, do you have any ideas? If you don't, that's okay.
No, I feel like those were both good. I'm really focused on the fact that number one says 3 steps, and then the second one says 3 proven ways. And I feel like those are kind of very different things. 3 steps is like, okay, ABC, and then you reach your goal. But 3 different ways is like 3 completely different ways to reach the same goal, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
I'm just
that's true.
Trying to decipher which
Yeah, that's actually absolutely true. And that's like, that was just me creating that. But that's a good point, and it's so good to think about this too, because like, I mean, when I was writing this, I was just like, 3 steps, 3 proven ways. Like I wasn't really thinking about it. But that's so true. Like they kind of mean totally different things. But I like the ideas we had. The one that I had in mind was like 3 steps or 3 proven ways, whatever we want to say, to reaching your dream client, right? Like people understand the idea of dream client, and that's kind of like an emotional thing versus like just saying customer, just saying client, because it's like, whatever. But if you're talking about like, oh, this is the dream situation, that's like a little bit more emotionally hitting, and then still using that reach rather than like creating content that resonates with. First off, it's super wordy, right? Like, ooh. And yeah, it's much more understandable. So this is good. And then the cool thing too is what I sometimes do when I'm writing content is I think of something, a title along these lines, right? Like 3 steps to improve your marketing. And then I'm like, okay, what problems could people have within marketing? So like reaching their target audience, maybe their brand voice is not aligned all over the place. Like it's just, scattered. So that could be a problem. Maybe they don't even know what it is they offer. Maybe their actual service or product is not complete or isn't, really good. So I think of all these different steps and then I create content from that. So it's like you kind of think of this overarching topic and then go, okay, what's the actual problem that people are experiencing within this? So that could be, another little useful thing. Okay, let's come up. So here's like a pretty generic hook: 3 steps to become debt-free. What's a more problem-aware hook that we could create? Because like people understand being debt-free, but like, is that the problem they're actually experiencing? They understand the idea of being debt-free, but is that the problem that they are experiencing? Is that the thing they actually need help with?
I think I would have to know who the content creator was to know if they're helping them either save money or make money.
Well, I just go with it either way, right? Like,
yeah, I think
free reign.
I mean, I think financial freedom is a big buzzword right now. So I would say, how how I got financially free in 6 months using, the ROD method or whatever.
Right. Yep. I like that too, because like you've given a time frame. It's also how I did it, not like here's how you can do it. Because I try to stay away from the here's how you can, or here's how you did, or here's the mistakes you made, because it's kind of condescending. Like maybe somebody isn't experiencing that. But if you say here's how I did it, or here's the mistakes I made, it's like it takes all of that away and says, hey, I'm human too, and I made these mistakes, but here's how I learned from it, or here's what I've done. So I love how you said that too.
And I found that storytelling, in my research, storytelling is the best hook. So like my coach today was telling me about a time that they had to pay like a 6-figure tax bill. And I was like, please make a carousel about that. I want to hear the whole story.
Honestly. And that's, before we continue, I just want to say, like, that's a really good point. It's so good to have conversations with other business people, because you'll be telling a story and they're like, you should make content about that. And you're like, oh, I've never even thought about making a piece of content about that, because it's just normal for me, but they're like, what? Like, I want to know more. Make some content about it. Oh, okay. Like, that's such an important part of having conversations. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, I
And yet,
find too, like right after meeting with someone, like for a sales call or anything like that, I have several ideas. And so I just write them down, like things that they brought up that like I haven't thought of that way, or like I think about, but I never post about them. So that can be so helpful too.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, anytime you're interacting with anybody, especially if they're prospective clients, like you can get so much good stuff out of that, so much good content if you go back through those calls, those conversations, because they're literally telling you what their problems are in their own language in real time. And it's like the content out of that is so good. Or the mistakes that you make on those calls. It's like, oh, I could just make loads of content about this because I just messed this up big time, but now I know better, Okay, do we have any other ideas? Or give you a second to think. If you don't come up with any ideas, that's okay.
I feel like stripped back basic, I would just say 3 steps to manage your money better, or something like that. Just because to me, that's can be one of the core problems of like the debt thing, other than the obvious like school or home or car kind of thing. It's like can be a money management problem. So I think that's probably the best I can do quickly.
Yeah.
It's like 3 steps for better money management or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think we also have to ask ourselves, like, when we're making these, what are people willing to admit to themselves into the world, right? Because maybe somebody isn't willing to admit that they're in debt, but they are willing to admit that they don't manage money well, right? They're sort of in denial about the debt side of things, but they're like, yeah, I'm not the best at managing money. Like I could get on board with that. And everybody has those things that they're just simply not willing to admit the actual problem, but they're willing to admit the symptom. So I think that's good too. And most people would understand the idea of managing money. So the one that I came up with, again, like kind of like you guys, I just like thought of this real quick, is the idea of stop living paycheck to paycheck, because a lot of people understand that. They get that. They're living it right now. And they thought, okay, maybe if I could not live paycheck to paycheck, that would be cool. And again, it goes back to that, like, what are you willing to admit? And maybe, this is where market research and all this stuff would come in. Obviously, we're not financial people, so we don't have the market research, but are people more likely to admit that they're in debt, or are they more likely to admit that they're living paycheck to paycheck? I don't know. I haven't done the research, but like, let's say that we find out they're more likely to admit they're living paycheck to paycheck, then that's probably what you should say, because more people are going to resonate with that because they're willing to admit it to the world and themselves and their friends and everybody else. So sure, they can admit it on social media. Okay, let me check the time. 3:30. Cool. Okay, do we have any questions about this? Comments, concerns, criticisms about problem aware hooks?
I guess just something I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah.
I know this is a content strategy, but something I've found with sprint testing paid ads is sometimes I'll test pain points as a hook with like I'll put $20 into like 10 really simple ads, and then I can figure out what the most common pain point is by what gets the most clicks. So if I'm trying to
Mm.
design a funnel, sometimes I'll learn what kind of headlines are going to convert by describing several problems or one problem in 10 different ways, depending on what I'm trying to do.
That's a really good idea, actually. Is like just really like simple things, putting them out there and see what resonates the most. And I mean, that's a fast way to do organic social media like really quickly, right? Because I mean, that's the whole idea of experimentation. I know when I first sort of transitioned into business coaching, I was thinking like, oh, like the niche side of things, choosing your niche is going to be like really hard hitting with my audience. Like that's what people are going to really resonate with. And it turns out like content strategy is the thing that people really resonate with. And like, yeah, the niche stuff does okay, the branding does okay, but like content strategy is what's really important. And usually if somebody's struggling with content strategy, they also need help with their niche and their target audience and all those other things. But it's like that the content strategy is really what like gets them. But I never would have guessed that. So it just was like that experimentation. But yeah, that's a great way to like expedite that process and just make it as fast as you possibly can, which is the goal, right? Just expedite things as much as we can. Oh my goodness. Um, while you were talking, I thought of something. What was it? I don't know. It'll come back to me if it's important. But I'm curious, since we're talking about hooks, what have you guys found in terms of a hook that seems to work really well for you consistently? Has there been anyone?
I've noticed that talking about money is a big one for obvious reasons. The other one is if you capitalize the word actually. I don't know why, but like here's how to actually get more followers in 2022. People, I can't explain it. It works.
That's
Well,
interesting.
I can't, but yeah.
Yeah, I that's interesting because I feel like it makes sense, because there's so much information out there. And if you say like, this is actually how you do, like, this is real, this is not gibberish.
It's
This
like
is
kind of saying everyone else is lying to you without directly saying everyone else is lying to you.
Exactly. And I think right now, at least in America, I don't know how it is in the rest of the world, but I think the word actually is used a lot, a lot more than is necessary, sort of like the word literally. Um, and so I wonder if that has something to do with it too, because it's really kind of part of our language right now, the word actually. So people kind of connect with it in that way. I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I think it has a little bit of like spiciness to it without being like actively aggressive. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that probably resonates with Gen Z a fair amount.
Mhm.
And that they enjoy a little spice. Like if you're not calling at least 1% of people out, it's kind of boring.
Yeah, it's like, like you're lame. Please move on. And it also speaks to that, the idea that we all see all the time, like you got to be controversial in your posting, which, it's sometimes it's really hard to be controversial when you're posting about social media because like it's really not that spicy of a topic. But that I think that kind of plays into that, right? Like that you're calling people, you're essentially calling all the other people liars, in a way, kind of in a soft, non-aggressive way, but you sort of are.
It's kind
So
of
that's
harmless
good.
drama.
Yeah.
Blameless, maybe drama without like pointing out. Because sometimes I do make content that's like this TikTok coach is lying to you.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to be controversial because I am so mad at so many people for actively misleading people. Like how I am, a one person on Megan's Kajabi this week.
Yes. Uh, I love that. I feel like I need to be more opinionated about things, but I'm just so like laid back as a person that I'm like, eh. So
Appreciate from a nervous system perspective also, just having a nice place to feel
yeah,
supported.
yeah,
I just live for drama because I'm a Sagittarius.
yeah,
And if people are wrong, I need them to pay for it.
yeah. I love that. Okay, any other hooks that people have found generally work for them, or like hook structures?
I find like very similar to what we were just talking about, but kind of going in the direction of like an unpopular opinion, or like, oh, you don't need this. So then
Mhm.
like kind of explain how you do need that. So it's
Yep.
like, oh, you don't need reels if you don't want your reach to increase, you know? Kind of
Yep.
like in that backwards way of like, fine, don't do it, but then you're not gonna get, you know, the benefit of doing it.
Yep. Absolutely. I find that those types of hooks are really helpful too. It's like you say something that's contrary to what everybody else is saying, and then you explain like, actually you do need it, but you don't have to have it. Or like, you know, you do need hashtags, but don't pay attention to them wholeheartedly, maybe. Don't stress over them insane amounts. I find that those type work really well, but it's tough because you kind of walk the line of being sort of clickbaity. So you have to make sure it's like designed really well. Um, because I've definitely stumbled across posts that are like that. I'm like, oh, I'm interested, and I read it, and I'm like, this was just clickbait. Like, this is so unhelpful and non-useful, and I feel tricked. But if you do it well, it does work. And I've also come across those type of posts, which is why when I make them, I'm like really careful and I examine them like hardcore. I've come across those type of posts where I get to the end and I'm like, I'm confused. Like, do I need this or do I not need this? It's not clear what I was actually supposed to do. So it can be hard, but they do work very well. One that I've found works really well, and we kind of talked about it a little bit before, was the like you put yourself in their shoes, kind of a thing, like here's the mistakes that I made, or like when I'm trying to think of an example. Oh, one of my reels that went like just absolutely viral. It was like super simple. Of course, it took me 4 seconds to make. But the text on it was like me being confused. And the text on it was like, when I open up the Reels tab and I have no idea what to do. And it went totally viral. And of course, like I know what to do when I open up the Reels tab, but so many people related to it because they're like, yes, this is me. But I wasn't saying this is you when you open up the Reels tab. So it wasn't that like, it didn't feel like aggressive, you know what I mean? It didn't feel condescending because I put myself in their shoes. And so I'm always trying to think of that. I'm like, how can I put myself where they are in this piece of content? Because I have been there before, so I know what it's like, but I'm not there now. But how can I put myself there again? And like, so instead of saying, because everybody's like, oh, put you as soon as you possibly can so it connects with them. I don't think that's true all of the time. Like, tell me if you disagree, but I don't think that's true all of the time, because sometimes when you say you too often or too quickly or in the wrong way, it just feels really aggressive and condescending.
I have two things about that. One is with what you were saying about putting yourself in that position. It made me think about on LinkedIn, people always like people who are maybe already famous in their niche are like, if I was going to start a SaaS company in 2023, this is what I would do. Or if I was starting a YouTube channel from scratch, this is what I would do. I always watch those. I find those like I love an experienced perspective about how a beginner would start now. And then with the you thing, I found it's really helpful if it's like, this is how you can do this,
Yep.
or, but I agree, the ones that are like, you should stop doing this. I feel like those have gotten too clickbaity, like they've gotten adopted by the clickbait people so much that it's become anything that gets adopted by clickbait too much becomes white noise to people. And then you have to interrupt a new pattern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And okay, thought somebody was talking. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I found that using we can be helpful to like kind of bridge that, because it kind of connects to like things that have worked well, hooks that have worked well with my clients and with my own account. Using we kind of creates that community feeling. It like makes it relatable. And I know too, when I am reading things and I see like, we all know, then it's like I instantly feel a connection, even if I didn't know that or something like that. So I think using we can bridge that you gap at the same time. And it also kind of fosters that community feel that social media is like supposed to grow,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I don't think I really use we very often in my content. Maybe I should start doing that, because I agree, like we want to build this community, but it's kind of just like, well, should I put I or should I put you? But what if we just like, we're all on the same page at once? I love that. Thanks for sharing. Okay, any other thoughts on that? Okay, absolutely. If you think of something, feel free to shout it out. Okay, so this is sort of the end, but we can talk about it a little bit more. Because we still have about 15 minutes or so. So we've discussed the problem at length, right? The hook at length. So now is the agitator authority. I feel like agitate is the easy one, at least it is for me, because you talk about you have the hook, and then on the next slide or the next clip of the reel or whatever, you sort of dig into that problem a little bit more. You like go into the things that they're experiencing because of that problem, or my like common example that I show clients all the time is like, here's why you're not getting clients. And then the agitate would be like, you're posting consistently, you're engaging, you're doing all the things, but like people still aren't converting. So like, swipe to figure out why. It's like it's super, they've clicked on it because they resonate with it. And then they read that and they're like, oh my gosh, yes, you get me. Like, this is so frustrating. I'm irritated. Now they're going to keep swiping. When I learned about the authority one, that was what was harder for me to think about because I was unfamiliar with it. So the way that I teach my clients to build authority is like, you show the person that's reading the post or watching the post that you have a right to be talking about what you're talking about. That you aren't just some random person that popped off the street and said, I'm going to make a piece of content about XYZ subject. Like, I have some sort of experience. And even if you're just starting out, like, you have experience, right? So, saying things like, after working with my clients, these are the most common things or common mistakes I've seen people make. So it says like, hey, I've actually worked with clients before. I've seen this in real time. I'm not just making this up. I didn't just Google this. Or saying things like, after even, maybe you've never had clients, but you went to school for marketing. After 4 years studying marketing, this is what I've seen. So it's like, I have a degree. I've studied this. I've spent years of my life dedicating to this topic. Or even saying something so simple as, after several conversations in the DMs with other entrepreneurs, these are the problems I see them having, and here's how to solve it. So it's like, okay, I haven't worked with clients. Maybe I don't have a degree, but I've had conversations with real people, and these are their real problems. And if they are having these real problems, that means you probably are also having these real problems, and here's how you can solve it. So just kind of giving some, authority, some perspective on, here's why I actually have the right to say what it is I'm saying. And I'm not just coming up with this out of nowhere and just fabricating this, because unfortunately there's a lot of people on the internet that really have no business doing what they're doing because they have no idea what they're talking about. And I get it. Like, we all start at a place where we don't know what we're talking about, but you should probably do something to, educate yourself, take a course, get a mentor, whatever it is. But I just think there's a lot of people who are like, oh, it's just a way to get rich quick. And so we have to like differentiate ourselves from those people somehow. And we do that by building authority and saying, hey, I actually have a right to be talking about what I'm talking about. And, no, I'm not the best. No, I'm not the most knowledgeable person about content strategy, but I have some experience. I have more experience than the average person, and that's worth something. And something I tell my clients a lot is like, most people don't want the best of the best, right? They can't afford the best of the best. That would be way too much information for them. They wouldn't be able to handle it. They're just looking for somebody a little bit better than them that has a little bit more knowledge, because that person is relatable to them. And they know, hey, like, oh, Hannah just went through this problem 6 months ago, and now she has the answers. And so she still understands what it's like to be where I'm at, versus someone that went through this problem 60 years ago and has no idea what it's like to be where I'm at anymore, has completely forgotten, right? Like, nobody's looking for that. They're just looking for the person that's relatable, that has a little bit more experience than them, that can help them on their way, right? So any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms all that. I just talked for a while, so.
I was just gonna say pretty much the exact same thing as you when you were talking about how you don't have to be the best of the best, because
Mhm.
I feel like it really creates a gap between you and your audience. They just want to see like you were saying, like, oh, she was just here, she knows, and it wasn't, those people who have 100,000 followers. That's amazing. Um, but I want to know how I can grow from 0 to 1,000. And that person
Right.
is so far removed from that small goal that it's like, can I even trust them to do it? Because it may have changed since they grew. So
Mhm.
I feel like having that, even though you're not the best of the best, being like, I'm the best at this level, I think
Mhm.
that's
Yeah, and you make a really good point, because whether it's followers or sales or whatever, like everything in life is exponential, right? There's no like straight lines. And so having somebody with 500,000 followers say, "Hey, this is how you can grow your following," is probably not as relevant as somebody with, 2,000 followers telling you how to grow your following if you have 50 people following you. Because the person with 500,000 followers is getting 1,000 followers a new day every day by doing nothing, because that's how growth works, right? Like it's exponential. But somebody with only 2,000 followers is maybe getting, 2 or 3, 4 or 5, maybe 10 followers every new day. And so they kind of understand more what it's like to have that like small beginning. And the same goes for sales or making content or whatever. It's all exponential. So the more you get or the better you get quicker and faster. But if you're still down here, like you need somebody that's just a little bit ahead of you on the curve, because they kind of know where you're at a little bit more. So good.
Just
Appreciate that,
something I'll say
Chelsea.
about that. When people get really new to content, if they're like a service provider or something, I always say, especially for coaches, your avatar is just you 3 months ago. And so
Hmm.
think about what you needed 3 months ago, or the shorthand for that I also say is pay it backwards.
Hmm.
Like give somebody a tool that you wish you had 3 months ago. And I find that when I don't know what to do, I mean, I would say like probably 75% of my content is just me sharing something new that I learned because I think it's interesting, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point, because and chances are if your avatar is somebody different than who you were, or generally who you were 3 months ago, it's probably not going to work out for you very well, because you're not going to resonate with that person, they're not going to resonate with you, they're not going to like catch the same vibe as you. So yeah, it really is just you a little bit ago. And yeah, like you said, like sharing new things that you learned because it interests you, therefore it would have interested you 3 months ago. So like it's a pretty good way to go about doing things. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Okay. Well, cool. If you're cool with it, I would love to do just like a little very quick shameless plug about my business. Um, and so if you're not cool with it, like literally give me a thumbs down and then I won't do it. Everybody good with it? Okay, cool. Okay, so business foundations coaching. Here's what I do. Here's the things that I talk about, which I've mentioned several times during this call, but we'll, go over them quickly. It's most of you, I think, know what these things are, but niche, target audience, brand, content strategy, lead generation, sales strategy. So all of the things that you need as a foundation to actually build something on top of it. And the reason I got into this is, so I was a social media manager, and then I transitioned into Instagram coaching. And I was like, okay, but it really wasn't like hitting well for me. And then I realized like what I was actually passionate about was not Instagram. I love Instagram, and basically I teach people everything I know about Instagram. I don't really have any other, expertise on different platforms. But what's actually interesting to me is the business foundations, because that's what I struggled with. When I started my business, I was like, I'll figure it out as I go. Like target audience, right now, anybody who'll pay me, niche, whatever work I can get. Content strategy, post things. Lead generation, fingers crossed something will happen. Sales strategy, I have no idea. Like, hopefully they'll pay me. That's just like, I'll figure it out as I go. Right. And so that when I was like, actually sat down and did the work for myself in my business, things changed dramatically. And, I didn't sit down and do it by myself. I sat down with a coach, courses, did all of the things, gathered all the information I possibly could, and actually did it. And so that's when things really changed for me. And I just have encountered so many other people that are kind of in the same place as me. It's like, oh, I'll figure it out as I go. And then they end up in a place that they're frustrated and they're unmotivated and they're about to give up. And it's like, if you just changed a few things, everything would be different. So with that in mind, obviously, I literally don't care if all of you are like, girl, I'm good. Like, I don't need this. But if there's even a small chance that you do, I wanted to offer it to you. So 2 different options today. So you can take advantage of my 1-hour intensive call with 3 days of support. So we get on a call, we talk about, one of those things, 2 of those things, whatever we need to talk about, pack it all in there. And then you have 3 days after that to ask me any questions. Because if you're anything like me, you get on the call and like at the end, they're like, do you have any questions? And you're like, no, I'm great. Like, I'm good to go. And then an hour later, you're like, oh my gosh, I have 1.5 million questions. I don't know what I'm doing. I've forgotten everything and I need more help. So that's why I have this 3 days of support, because I feel like you always need to kind of step back for a second, process, and then you can ask more questions and say, hey, how do I actually do this again? So I usually offer that for $375, but today, because you're here and I'm excited to have you here, it's only $250 for you. And then I also have my 4-week coaching program. So this is 4 weeks, you get 4 calls with me. And then in between the 4 calls, you have 100% access to me. I tell people 24/7, but then put a little caveat it and say, we all eat, sleep, and have lives. So you can't expect me to answer at 3 a.m. I'm probably asleep, or if I'm not asleep, I'm out at the bar with my friends having fun. So I will not be responding to you, but I get back to you as soon as I possibly can. And then also with the 4-week coaching program comes all sorts of deliverables. For example, if we talk about branding and target audience and niche, I have this entire brand deck that I use. I give to all of my clients. It's basically all of your foundations in one place, because that was another big problem for me, is like, I had all of my things, but they were all in this notebook and that notebook, on my phone, on my computer, all over the place, and I could never find anything that I wanted. And so it was all in one place. So there's all sorts of deliverables like that I provide to you. And it's all customizable too. So no 2 of my clients have ever gotten the same things, because it's all geared towards them and what would be helpful for them. And that's usually $1,500, but today, if you're interested, it'll be just $1,000 for you. And of course, obviously, if there's a little bit of interest for you, but you're like, Hannah, I can't make this decision on this like 5-minute little spiel that you've given me, we can schedule a call and we can get it figured out. But that's what I